I sort of repeat one thing ad nauseum, which is the thing that I get most out of these sessions, is indeed hearing what your concerns are, what your feedback is, what your input is, what your questions are, but also realizing that this really is the beginning of a learning community. And that is so important. I mean, I don't think I'd be doing this if we didn't have a chance to be creating and carrying out an ongoing learning community. Because I don't care how many of the sort of preliminary answers we might seem to have about what an integral transformative practice is, and what a more comprehensive approach to human potential or human spirituality is. This is all pioneer territory. It's never been done before. I'll give you just a very brief example. You've had an introduction to big mind, big heart work, hopefully just the beginning of a process you can deepen and carry forth. That's one important component. Now, tomorrow you're going to get a real treat, which is David Data is going to come and work with you for 3 hours. And David is really quite extraordinary. Those of you who know his work know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't know his work are in for a real treat. And he's going to cover some of what we might think of as the more manifest components of your being, namely the X-rated component. And I know many of you are here for that part. You won't be disappointed. If you take that, if you take those two components, then add a third, which is the understanding uniquely given to us by Western developmental psychology, an understanding of certain kinds of stages, like those investigated by Jane Lovinger or Claire Graves or spiral dynamics and so on. Those three components right there, plus psychopathology, those four, you don't find any of those fully presented in any one tradition, or any of the traditions as a whole. You don't find those four presented in just Western psychology. You don't find those four presented in psychodynamic approaches. No place short of an integral approach that we're all figuring out can you find just the four that I've mentioned, all under one roof. And yet one thing is certain, we know enough today to know that if you're not touching bases with all four of those, you're leaving out some part of you. And it's going to come back to haunt you. And so that's really part of what we get to do with this extraordinary adventure in integral. Again, an adventure that is very, very new. So even though I think we have made enormous strides in this, it's still literally virgin territory. Can you say that nowadays? I don't want to get into that National Enquirer with me. It really is uncharted territory. So that's why I think the learning community component of this is so important, so exciting, and something that all of us can do together as we carry this forward. We're going to give you what we think is up-to-the-date, state-of-the-art, leading-edge, last-minute formulations that we have in terms of an integral approach. And that still is like the early pioneers and the maps they used to draw of the so-called New World. Completely distorted, and you've seen those maps. I mean, so it's like, it's like Florida is the size of Greenland, those kind of things. Well, that's our map, but it's still the only map we have, and it's the one we can use to get us to a better map. But maps are also just representing a territory. And everybody knows not to confuse the map with the territory. Well, the territory is you. The territory is your awareness. The territory is your own potential, your own growth, and your own development. And the maps we're presenting are signposts and hints about how to actualize that territory of yourself in ways that you're the only one that can be the judge of this. You're the only ones that can say, this is useful, this isn't useful, this is what I need more of, this is what I need less of. The idea sounded good the 5 days I was here. I went back to work, and a day and a half later, I forgot everything. But you know what I mean? How it tend to slip away. We don't intend that to happen. We're having really intense follow-up, and we're putting in place all sorts of online integrated university preeminently, which we hope to launch as early as April. And so we want a very, very intense follow-up where you will be able to stay in touch with everybody here, people from other seminars, as well as teachers and coaches. We'll already have some of that ready for you at the end of this week. But it's still an ongoing adventure, and that's what's so extraordinary about it. But the adventure really has just begun. And it's not a put down in the previous 30 years. I mean, every single advance that has been made by the human potential movement in the last 3 decades is still very, very important. But it's really only in the last 2, 3, 4 years that it's all somehow started to come together. That we've seen enough things that work and enough things that don't work, that we can start to really, really get excited about the possibilities that we have. And in that sense, then, we're all beginners on the whole integral project. And that's what's kind of fun for all of us. Thomas Edison is, apparently this is true, when he finally hit upon an incandescent filament that worked to give the first light bulb. A New York Times reporter said, you know, how does it feel? Because he'd gone through 2,000 ones that didn't work. And the New York Times reporter said, how does it feel to have 2,000 failures? And he said, oh, now we know 2,000 things that don't work. So it's a very positive component, actually. Well, the last 30 years of the human potential movement, we know 2,000 things that don't work. And that's a very positive thing to know. We also know a handful of things that do work. We're trying to draw all of those together into a comprehensive, balanced formulation that we'll be presenting over this week. And some of you are familiar with from some of the writings that are preliminary statements on it.